Agency, Crossroads Family Dentistry, Forest Youth Athletic Association, and Meineke Car Care.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app. 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Polar opposites. The vibe around Liberty Flames football versus Liberty Flames men's basketball. Men's basketball today got a little testy there at the end of the 79-73 win against Vermont. But by and large, we're seeing what this Liberty Flames team can be. Some of it, but not all of it, I would say, as we welcome you into the fast lane, would be attributable to the fact that they are in a unique spot compared to other teams. Go back to what John Jacobs said a couple of weeks ago after the Field of 68 event, where Liberty went 2-0, was pretty dominant in wins against Charleston and FAU. And while it was only a 6-point margin today against Vermont, Liberty was in control and led by double digits for the majority of that game. Some of it is the fact that Liberty, they have a returning core of Zach Cleveland, Colin Porter, and Caden Matheny, among others. Some of it's also the fact they have done a good job of supplementing pieces around them and developing. And that's where John Jacobs, I think, hit the nail on the head. But the easiest way to summarize what you might have seen, or if you missed it, what we get to summarize for you, I'll be honest, to get my usher on for a moment. Like, I literally do not know the other audio station where you can find Liberty Flames men's basketball. Like, I was strolling around on the dial this afternoon, again, to get my usher on. I wasn't listening to VTRN Sports or the VTRN Sports app the entire day today. Sorry, got to keep it real here for a moment here in the fast lane. And I couldn't find it. So eventually I mean, look, I wasn't watching this, but you pull up the audio version of the TV broadcast on ESPNU, and then you just let the audio do the job. And there is a totally different art. Quick detour.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
If you've ever tried this tactic, you can't find the audio broadcast or the radio broadcast, if you want to use a technical term, although I listen to radio on streaming, including the VTRN Sports app, even more than the traditional dial. If you try to supplement that by listening to a TV broadcast but not watching, it does not come close to doing it justice. No way. Try watching Monday Night Football. And look, this is not an anti-Troy Aikman like I'm anti-Tom Brady, and especially your guy, Tony Romo. By the way, Thanksgiving, we save you from all three. TB12, before that, actually TB12, then Tony Romo, and then the PFF infomercials of Chris Collinsworth and the NBC crew, because Collinsworth has an ownership stake in it, and I would bet in this contract it's just pimp that brand like no other. Try listening without watching. You know, you're cleaning dishes, Thanksgiving, after whatever meal, and you got it all in the background. And tell me if you can really keep up with it. Then dump that, pull up the VTRN Sports app, and you'll be like, wow, it's night and day. No, it's like giving glasses to somebody that previously didn't have vision. You know, probably a bad analogy. Full detour here in the fast lane. It's like taking glasses to a third world country. I do not call them developing if they are not getting better. But taking glasses to a third world country, giving them the right prescription glasses, and then watching the look on their eyes. Now it's just different. Hearing the look and joy of audio, radio versus TV. I bring that up to say I was trying to consume Liberty's victory against Vermont at the end of the game when I left the house with my kids, dropped them off. My wife, Brownstone Properties, great people. Whether you want to invest in a home or you need a new place to live as a renter, they can help you. Or buying a home. They also have that too. My wife's a licensed agent. Just throw that plug in there. It's different though. So I'm listening to the TV broadcast and I'm just sitting here going, I really appreciate this. We'd be open to carrying it, but if that's not happening, it is what it is. But for Liberty basketball, the growth that they have, by the way,
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
The growth that they have to a certain extent is because they do return a number of key players from last year's team. But the other is the fact that we've clearly seen Brett Decker Jr.'s improvement. And to me, the difference maker component of that cannot be overstated. I get it. Porter and Cleveland were probably the best players for Liberty today. But there were a couple junctures where if the shots aren't going for Matheny and Porter from the outside, who, by the way, they did a really good job of creating inside against the tall but not as athletic as they'll face in other games, Vermont interior. You've got now that third cog that totally changes the dynamic of your team in Brett Decker Jr.
I saw it in high school, to be honest with you. Like he's got a special ability to score the ball. But we play both ends of the floor, and he's had a deeper commitment to defensive end. And like you gotta kind of decide when you're matching up with is like who are you gonna put your better defenders on? And so him being able to play with Colin, Caden, and Zach at the same time, and JJ, that it's a lineup that is a little unconventional, but
it may be a little unconventional, but for Liberty, it changes the complexion of their team. Because now you have more shooters for whom you can account. And never say never, Oregon last year, but it's really rare that if you got three premier shooters from three-point range, that they're all going to go cold the same night. Two of them, it's quite possible. Oregon last year was a great example. But three, the odds are even lower that that's going to happen. Some of that's personnel. Some of that's a coaching staff that was willing to make changes and bring in the transfer portal and identify the right blend of holdovers and speed dating out of the transfer portal and relying on those elements. And the vibe for basketball is that even though it's early in the season and they still have to get through Conference USA play, and it's probably a one big conference, there's a legitimate amount of hope, or you could just call it optimism, that Liberty can do that. Meanwhile, we're in a different spot entirely with Liberty Flames football. Are you going to be at that game, or are you going to the Virginia Tech UVA game this Saturday? Or do you know yet, Ty?
I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm probably gonna go to the UVA Virginia Tech game. That's my plan so far. Because right now, if I be honest about Liberty, I called this the whole time. This team is not gonna do good. I seen it from. I think the first game in the main, I was like, this is not gonna look good. The second game, it just started going downhill after that.
I go back to the Missouri State game. You mentioned this team really having struggles this year, and to me, the biggest analogy was the JMU game. I know ODU was after that, but even before Ethan Vasco went down, the guy's accuracy is all over the place. It's like taking me to a shooting range.
I wouldn't say it's Ethan Vasco. It's more than that. I point out plenty of times. If I had to give you a guess, what do you think it is?
Offensive line, defensive line.
Both
of those.
Close enough. I'll say between the tackles, especially the defense side of the ball, it's just been terrible. Not trying to say it was just been terrible for him this whole season.
Well, and you factor that into what I think Jamie Chadwell's comments after the Missouri State game are the ones where you realize, okay, the dream of Liberty pulling out of that 1-4 start and going 7 wins in a row and maybe playing in the Conference USA Championship game, maybe not, went out the window. And a lot of it's because they were missing on the little things for a team that, whether it's the lack of talent on the roster or the lack of development of talent. And I think the lack of talent, you can point to the defensive side, two of your best defensive linemen, Bush and Hardy, exit after the spring portal window. You're just not going to fill that gap. You're not going to backfill that if you're Liberty the way you are a bigger program, because you're not going to be able to provide that much of a financial incentive for the most talented players to come to you. But the offensive side, the developmental side, they by and large had the majority of their pieces in there before spring portal window wrapped up. And they seemed to think they were going to be good, and they haven't been, and then they missed on the little things.
It's the whole thing. I mean, it's all about those things. You know, when you have some runs, offensively, when you have a chance to get some big runs and you don't quite get to the linebacker, we're able to watch the game, on the sideline. You don't quite get to the linebacker the way you need to. That run's a 4-yard run. It really could have been 8 or 10 or 12 or who knows. And so those little details of getting your guy and getting the proper leverage, all those things, they went against good teams, especially a good defensive team that make you earn it. You got to make sure you're doing those things consistently. And every game they've been in, with the exception of one, it's been a grind them out like that. They're a big physical group. They do a good job. And so it's all about those things.
Jamie Chadwell, that was after the Missouri State game. They're big. They're physical. They grind you out. Does that seem to indicate anything you've seen out of Liberty this year, Ty? As a former offensive and defensive lineman, stand out in the Seminole District for Heritage, and then after that at Virginia Union. By the way, condolences on the loss in the HBCU Classic last week.
I would tell you after the break on that game. But it just been bad. I mean, I think the Missouri State game, that should have been like, okay, that really took the heart out of them. Like, yeah, this is not gonna be a good rest of the season right there. The way how the Missouri State game ended, that was like a heartbreak for them. Right
It's not only that, but at some point, some of this does fall on the coaching staff.
yeah.
And I'm not gonna say all of it. Some of it's personnel, some of it's staff. I think we are at the point now because they're not going to a bowl game. They could beat Kennesaw State this weekend. They're 5-7. They're not. It's 4-8. Either way, it's a disappointing season for Jamie Chadwell. This is the most disappointing season he's had, maybe ever, because his other 2 seasons where he won 3 games, 3-7, was at Delta State. It was only 1 year, and he had a good track record before that with good winning seasons. A couple of stops
Coastal
before that.
Carolina.
No,
Yeah.
that was before Coastal
Oh,
Carolina.
yeah.
And then his first year at Coastal was 3-7, but after that, every year was like 9, 10, 11 win seasons.
Yeah.
So you could see there was the trajectory. This is the first year where, like, as bad as last year was, this is a different level
Yeah.
because the talent doesn't look like it's been replenished, doesn't look like it's been developed. And I'm not saying fire Jamie Chadwell. I am not in that boat.
Nah, I mean, you can't say that.
Now, if this repeats itself next year, I don't think he's back after that. Like, I think at some point, Liberty being one of the 5 best resource programs by all accounts in the group of 5. And I'm taking the service academies and government money out of it because they also have academic standards and transfer restrictions to where Army, Navy, and Air Force, as good as they may be on some years, don't fit this description. But the 5 biggest resource programs by most accounts are Boise State out of the Mountain West, UNLV, I guess you could put them in that category now because they got casino money out there. But the other 3 are Tulane, South Florida, and Memphis. Liberty's in that top echelon with those programs of G5 money. And yet, look at all those others. Every one of them have had pretty good seasons. Navy, I don't think they're going to make the playoff, but they're an 8-9 win team fairly regularly. South Florida was in that conversation for a while this year. Tulane could be there. Boise State last year made the college football
What about
playoff.
JMU?
JMU, but they're not well resourced.
Okay.
Bob Chesney, $800,000 a year. He'll probably make more somewhere else next year, but that's the knock on Liberty. And if anything, I think JMU is a great point to bring up, Ty. JMU beat the heck out of Liberty when they played this year. They physically manhandled them on both sides of the ball. And JMU's much less resourced. And yet they did a better job with player development and player acquisition. That should not be the case if you're Liberty. Again, this is not fire Jamie Chadwell, but the whole loyal to the staff, loyal to your players, run it back. Dude, there's no way you can possibly do that. I'm not saying you have to go make wholesale changes and totally gut everything, but something has to change, right? I mean, if you're a Liberty Flames fan, there's no way you can repeat this again and be okay with it. And if you do, what confidence are you going to have? I mean, we could literally have a buy one, get 4 free sale on tickets at InsaneRadioDeals.com. We don't have it. We could. Hypotheticals. And that would not move tickets for Liberty football next season. Like, you're going to have more. And this is an era where you have to sell fans on hope and optimism. Excuse me, sell fans on hope and optimism.
And you got to think about it too as well. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Everybody got better in Conference USA. It's including Missouri State, that nobody never seen this coming. A team like they just came from the FCS to the FBS. I'm like, okay, this team's actually pretty good to be for the first year at the FBS level.
Correct. I mean, Missouri State looked good. They were physical in the trenches. For them in Delaware, you were there for both those games as well.
Yes.
And Missouri State looked like they had some size in the trenches. This is not, I don't think they were as big as JMU was up front or as big as ODU was, but they clearly look better than Delaware.
No, it was way bigger than both teams, for sure. Missouri State was way bigger than JMU and ODU.
So you think they were?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
I'll trust you. I thought there wasn't as big of a difference, but you played offensive and defensive line. You know even more of what I look.
I'll say defensive-wise, yes, they was way bigger. Yeah.
And then regardless, Liberty, I think those games all expose where Liberty is. If South Florida, Memphis, Boise State, JMU, I think you could put in that, even Missouri State in their conference this year, they built players through the trenches. Liberty's got to get bigger up front there. Like if you have the financial resources and the rev share that Liberty has, you're going to have to find a way to do that. Again, they were kind of gutted on the defensive side of the ball in the spring window with one transfer portal window, June 2nd through the 16th now. That is something that should be navigable for Liberty. But offensively as well, I get that Chadwell is extremely loyal to his staff, but there's no way you can convince me, be loyal to the staff, be loyal to the players, bring them all back and run it back. Dude, run it back from a 4-5 win team that struggles to put up points regularly? What are we doing here? Like, I'm not to sound mean, but odds are I could be off. I would be very much of the belief that Evan Dickens and Dante Lee are going to be in the transfer portal sooner rather than later. So you're going to probably lose two of your best skill position players. If you're a Liberty team that's 8-3 and you have a bunch of 8-4 and a bunch of returning players, and therefore you're like, hey, stick it out one more year, we could get to we could contend for a playoff spot, and then everybody goes. I get that sales point. But Liberty right now, even though you can flip the roster quickly, seems like they're far off from it. So the vibe is totally different. And again, this is not fire Chadwell or saying specific coaches or players have to go. I'm just saying the idea of running it back with the same core and being really loyal. I sympathy for Jamie Chadwell. He's never really had to make wholesale changes. But I don't know how you can't at least say something is going to have to change off a team that underperformed this much, especially on the offensive side of the ball when that's your area of expertise.
Yeah, definitely. So I just feel like it's going to be, they're going to have to make some changes. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised they get a new defensive coordinator after their defense been playing this whole season and they give up I think they only hold like two teams under 10 points and everybody been like putting up more than 25 points if I'm not mistaken. So I just feel like the defense, they have to focus on defensive side of the ball for sure because that has been Achilles heel, the box seven. And maybe, like you said, up front is one of the O-linemen because you got to think about their bread and butter is run the ball, and that has not been effective.
No, it hasn't. Liberty, they've run the ball well. They abandoned it for some reason as opposed to Ethan Vasco, who's throwing interceptions left and right. And if he's injured, he's injured. But you have to have the game plan to compensate for that. Like, that to me is where if you're Liberty going, what happened here against Louisiana Tech? And Vasco's not my cup of tea as a quarterback. I think he's too erratic as a passer, and I don't think he's the most athletically gifted runner. And I get, again, we've said this before. You had a 4-star recruit in Jaden Bradford. I've heard that the highs are NFL caliber, but the lows are kind of on the high school level, like those type of middle mistakes. Again, I'm not there in practice. I don't know, but that's kind of the scouting report that's kind of been presented. Either you work through that with the guy, or you got to find other guys that can come close to it. You're not going to get the perfect measurable size, speed, mental acumen, and athleticism at quarterback. You know what happens to those guys? They go to bigger programs because they're really hard to find.
Yeah.
But Alonzo Barnett doesn't really have the high ideal size, but he's got everything else you'd want. And he's been a really good quarterback for the most part for JMU. That's the type of player you're going to find. You're going to lose something somewhere, but finding a way to go forward and get the right pieces in place. But I think you're right, Ty. Something's going to have to change because you can't just run it back with everybody and go, oh, this is going to be perfect.
Yeah, and that's all. Just like is this offseason, they have to focus on what they got to do. They got to make some huge changes. I mean, we're not gonna know to probably December, January. That's when everything started. We start realize what's going on. They start talking about it and everything. They start figuring out. But right now, it's just gonna be it's behind closed doors. But it's gonna happen soon. Probably between December and January.
Yeah, and look, I would imagine we'll probably start to even get some clarity by next Monday when we're in the fast lane. It's not going to be everything. But when the regular season will have wrapped up for Liberty and a majority of teams, you'll start to see a high volume of players go ahead and announce they're entering the portal. A lot of that's probably stuff that's already been discussed with them and their representatives, family, agents said in air quotes this time. But and you may well start to see some news of staff changes at Liberty as well, because there will be some, I know certainly in the valuation standpoint from Liberty, whether it's coaches, staff, player evaluation somewhere. But the idea of running it back is not something you can get away with if you're Liberty with the amount you have invested in the expectations that are there. More on this tomorrow. John Manson from AseaRed.com with us in the Fast Lane, the comparisons of the two. We'll try to get to other topics in the Fast Five at 5-ish, but that would come after covering the Commonwealth, which begins when we return with Shane Metlin of DNROnline.com. Did the actual victory get superseded by a moral defeat for JMU, losing their college football playoff chances because of a close win against Washington State? We'll cover that, plus a big basketball victory against Virginia Tech for the JMU Lady Dukes. That when we return. This is the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and ask that smart speaker open VTRN Sports. We're joined by Randy Trost with Trost Law. Randy, unfortunately, you guys seem to be seeing a lot of people that are driving without insurance and then impacting other motorists. What have you guys noticed, and what do people need to know to protect themselves?
We are seeing clients come into our office being injured by motorists without insurance. And the most important thing that a person can do to protect themselves against these uninsured motorists or underinsured motorists is to make sure their own uninsured, underinsured coverage matches their liability coverage for their insurance policy on their car. and make sure they have more than the minimum liability coverage limits and uninsured, underinsured motorist liability coverage limits.
Randy Trost with Trost Law discussing how you can protect yourself from uninsured or underinsured motorists. When people are considering their policies, do you have any do's or don'ts to make sure they have a strong policy?
I recommend getting a minimum of $100,000 single event liability insurance policy and making sure that your uninsured, underinsured liability limits are matching that $100,000 liability policy.
Randy, thank you for sharing that info with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
For more about how Trost Law can help you if you've been hurt, trostlaw.com, 434-777-HURT.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Subaru. Love to drive? Then you'll love the all-new 2025 Subaru Wilderness family. These cars are built for adventure with symmetrical all-wheel drive, rugged capability, and legendary Subaru reliability. These stylish vehicles are ready for anything. Plus, every new Subaru we sell comes with an exclusive Terry Promise, a lifetime powertrain warranty. Visit us on Forest Road in Lynchburg or browse our inventory online 24/7 at terrysubaru.com. Terry Subaru. You'll love our cars.
This holiday season, take a step back in time to the heart of the 1940s. Join us at Cedar Oaks Farm in Bedford, Virginia for The Christmas List, a World War II era radio play recorded live to benefit the National Center for Healthy Veterans. Experience the story of the Bedford boys and their last Christmas before shipping out to serve their country. A moving night of laughter, love, and the true spirit of Christmas, featuring live music, classic sound effects, and a full cast performing just like the golden days of radio.
Jing-a-ling, 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 the night is made for sweet romancing. Ha, ho, through the snow we go.
Performances are December 12th and 13th at 7 p.m. and December 14th at 2 p.m. Tickets are on sale now at cedaroaksfarm.com, with proceeds benefiting the National Center for Healthy Veterans. Come share a nostalgic Christmas at Cedar Oaks Farm, where memories, music, and history come alive.
Hey, gang, this is Bud Foster, former defensive coordinator for the Virginia Tech Hokies. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle BT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
The vibe, the mood. Those are the questions we get to in part one of
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Duke.
It was a tussle the entire way. JMU prevailed 24-20 against Wazoo, but did they play their way further back in the college football playoff discussion? To answer that question for us now, we welcome in Shane Metlin of DNRonline.com and at Shane_DNR Sports on Twitter. Shane, going to be speaking with you. Did JMU's close and therefore not significant in style points-filled win against Washington State hinder their chances of going to the college football playoff?
I don't know. I don't think any of us know quite yet. I think we got to wait and see kind of what happens here in the final week of the regular season, the conference championship games, what happens elsewhere. And, I think, obviously, I think if they'd have gone in and really blown out Washington State, it could have maybe been a statement. I don't know that was necessarily ever really on the table. It's a pretty good team. They run the ball. They control time of possession. They don't really, with the exception of when they had a bunch of turnovers against North Texas, they don't get blown out by any teams. Like UVA and Ole Miss are in that category too. So I think you got to take a win and move on and try to hope that everything breaks your way if you're JMU.
So you mentioned that for JMU. First of all, the win itself against Washington State, then we'll look bigger picture in just a moment. Was it an, oh my goodness, this is a game that's closer than it should be? Or is this more of a, wait a second, we're forgetting this is a Wazoo team that after the blowout against North Texas, and I know that looms big in the playoff minds, they gave Ole Miss and Virginia a tussle, both games on the road, both teams that might well wind up in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised that the line was as heavy towards JMU as it was. They were a, 2 or more touchdown favorite in that one. but it did seem like it was a game that should be close for both teams. I mean, the travel has got away on Wazoo a little bit, and maybe that was a difference in the fourth quarter too. But like I said, they just play teams close. They grind it out. Jimmy Rogers, their coach now, played that style at South Dakota State, and so Bob Chesney had seen that at the FCS level. I think it was just exactly the kind of game he was expecting it to be.
So you mentioned what Bob Chesney expected from JMU. How much of that is him? How much of that is Alonzo Barnett? How much of it is a combination of them? Where, in spite of the fact that this was a game that was tighter than the point spread suggested it would be, it never seemed like JMU panicked at all during this contest.
Yeah, I don't think you've seen a lot of panic from JMU going back to like maybe early in the season when they were playing two quarterbacks and then they just didn't seem to have any rhythm on offense. But yeah, recently, I think there's so much confidence in the defense. There's so much confidence in the way they've adjusted in the second half that I don't think you see a lot of panic, even if they're not blowing a team out at halftime. And, you know, it was the first time they trailed in the fourth quarter since that loss at Louisville. But yeah, and then there never seemed to be a lot of panic. They got the ball back. They had it midway through the fourth quarter, and they just seemed to know they were going to go down and score.
DNRonline.com, Shane_DNR Sports for Shane Metlin, who's with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, as far as JMU's next steps, first of all, they need to win their last two games this coming weekend on the road against Coastal and then in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game next weekend. Where else do the Dukes turn as far as if you're giving a rooting guide for JMU fans? What are you encouraging them to root for beyond going 1-0 2 weeks in a row, to steal the coaching cliche?
Well, it could still get a little bit wild in the American. It's more than likely going to be Tulane and North Texas in there. But if either one of those teams gets upset, you might open the door for a team like Navy to get into the conference championship game. And if they would happen to win, I think that shakes things up a little bit. I don't know where Navy would be ranked relative to JMU. With a win in a conference championship game, they may jump them. I don't know, but I think you almost kind of have to hope for that if you're JMU. Or, you know, let's see what happens over the mountain this weekend. If the old bugaboo of Virginia Tech gets to Virginia Cavaliers, we could see an ACC championship game with no ranked teams. And, you know, if a team like Duke or someone wins the ACC, are they getting in over JMU and Tulane or whoever it happens to be over the American? So I think, you know, as much as they were rooting against the Hokies in women's basketball the other day, JMU fans are probably pulling for them this Saturday on the football field.
Well, you referenced the women's basketball matchup yesterday that you covered for DNRonline.com and tweeted at Shane_DNR Sports. Of JMU basketball, boys, not boys and girls, these are grown-ups here. Men's and women's basketball. Ty's laughing at my Freudian slip there, Shane. You probably should too. Which has had the most season? And is that the most impressive win for JMU basketball? The Lady Dukes upsetting the Lady Hokies.
Yeah, so far. Yeah, definitely. You know, I think they probably expected to have a little bit better performance against teams like Villanova and George Mason here early in the season. But they've played a really tough schedule in the midst of a really tough schedule because they go down and play Boston College and Wisconsin in their Thanksgiving tournament here in a few days. So 5 straight high major opponents for JMU women's basketball. They didn't get off to a good start of that with, you know, a blowout at Texas, but Texas is beating teams by about 60 points a game. And so, you know, lose by 40 to Texas, that's about what to be expected. To rebound from that and get it against Virginia Tech, that I think should be pretty competitive in the ACC. That's a good sign for where they're going on the women's side.
Yes, it is. It's a positive sign indeed. The insight is always positively good at DNRonline.com from Shane Metlin, who's with us in the Fast Lane. Shane, thank you for sharing some of that with us today here in the Fast Lane.
No problem.
Now to UVA.
With JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. Hootie, we'll start with the team that was in action over the weekend. I guess, first of all, were you able to make it up to the glorious Greenbrier and take in that 2-game, 3-day event at the Greenbrier Classic?
Yeah, I was over there, Ed. It's always a glorious place to go, but basketball was it was interesting. I'd never covered a game in a ballroom before. That was a new experience for me.
What is it like covering a game there? I mean, it cracks me up because it feels like watching it from those spots and having been in the ballrooms at the Greenbrier before and at the Homestead and some trips up there back in the day. It doesn't seem like they necessarily be the type of environment where if you launch a half court heave, it might well just hit the roof.
Well, yeah, that probably would have happened. I didn't see any passes like that, but they likely would have hit something. It was obviously close quarters. It was kind of like a high school setting. Fans were really close to the court and jammed in there, and pretty intense. It was probably a 75% Virginia crowd for those two games. So it was pretty boisterous in that respect, but not probably the ideal circumstances for a college basketball game, but you have to make the most of it.
Now, from the action itself, is this a back to reality moment, the loss to Butler 80-73 on Sunday, coupled with a narrow victory against Northwestern, or is this maybe the proper expectations that fans should have had entering this season, which is there are going to be some ups, maybe even some ups against good teams, but there may be some downs and inconsistencies, especially early in the year?
I think the latter, Ed, because this was a step up in competition. I think Butler has the makings of an NCAA tournament team. I thought they were pretty good. They had some really good quick guards. They had the most athletic forward that Virginia has faced in Michael Jai, I think is how they pronounce his last name. And then Finley Bizjack, who scored 25 points, was a quality guard. I think that was Virginia and Butler. I think if they played 10 times, it would probably be about a 50-50 split. They're both, I think, pretty good teams, but I think it was a learning experience for Virginia. It's what Ryan Odom hoped to get out of this, going to the tournament, playing two better teams, two good teams. And, some of Virginia's warts were exposed. I think they learned that Grunlow has a ways to go. He has trouble defending against a quicker, smaller forward who can drive passing. I think they learned a little bit about trying to stay out of foul trouble, although that would have been hard to do in this game because the whistles were blowing constantly. But I think they also discovered, that Chance Mallory they're a different team when he's playing in control. He's more aggressive and quicker than Dallin Hall. But they won't start him. They like him off the bench because he adds explosive energy. I think, they got Devin Tillis back after his early season knee surgery. He's going to be an attribute going forward. And he's like a bull in the china shop down in the post because he just uses his body to back people down for a couple of nice moves he made toward the basket. So I think it was a learning experience, nothing that's going to hurt them in terms of going forward. Should help them get better as we get closer to ACC action.
Yes, it should. Meanwhile, we're always better with the insight from Jerry Ratcliffe as he shares it here in the Fast Lane. Hootie, Virginia football. They were not in action over the weekend. They get ready to host Virginia Tech in another primetime game this coming Saturday that might feature the attendance of our very own Ty Tracy. The matchup itself, I know Virginia fans seem to have this, boogeyman complex when it comes to Virginia Tech, but is this what Virginia needs, which is a scenario where they need to be focused and locked in because they should beat Virginia Tech if they're that way. And I'm not saying it's going to flip the perception of the rivalry, given that James Franklin's bringing an entirely different approach to Blacksburg, but it at least makes it much more intriguing if that is in fact what transpires a dominant Virginia victory.
Well, yeah, I agree. I said a long time ago that if they're going to snap this streak, this is the ideal time to do it. They've never had things in their favor like they're going to have going into this weekend with a home game, plenty of momentum, a lot to play for. Probably a sellout crowd. Who knows? Maybe a record crowd if the Virginia fans show up. And Tech down on its luck, and that's a rare combination. I don't know that we've seen that too many times in the past quarter century, which is about how long Virginia's frustration has been in this rivalry. So, if they ever wanted an opportunity, it's handed to them on a silver platter.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is a spot where Virginia can not only win, but win comfortably. And we'll wrap it up with Jerry Ratcliffe on this particular question for Virginia. Is this the type of scenario where they actually need to blow out Virginia Tech? Because if it's close, while the players are largely new and not aware of it, that concept of doubt and the vibe in the stadium might feel a little tension. Whereas if Virginia gets on top early, you might be able to bury a Virginia Tech team that's poised for a lot of changes. And the fans certainly would change from maybe tension-filled to overjoyed and jubilant.
Yeah, I think so. Virginia plays much better in games when they get off to a good start. That's a big emphasis they put on their game plans is taking control early and building on that and then finishing. When they haven't done that, they've put games in jeopardy, to be, just to be perfectly honest. So it's upon them, particularly Des Kitchens, the offensive coordinator, to try to get some points on the board early and try to get things rolling and maybe kill Virginia Tech any fire that they bring to the stadium. So they should have a healthy crowd behind them. It's a matter of just executing and trying to get off to a fast start and trying to get early separation to where they don't have to sweat it out like they have in so many games.
Jerry, thank you very much for your time. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and you'll see Ty, maybe me, depending on how it goes, this coming weekend in Charlottesville.
Well, thanks, Kyle. Looking forward to seeing you, no matter who shows up, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your staff and everybody in our listening audience out there.
Most definitely indeed.
Now to Just For You haters, left hand up the Commanders.
Candy Baller, Seawall, Madam President, with us here in the fast lane. Candy, first of all, we hope you enjoyed your bye week. Second of all, the trip to Spain. It was not good in the win-loss column for the Commanders as they dropped another one to the Miami Dolphins. Overall, the vibe, do you come away more promised and more pleased with the NFL's efforts in Europe, or less pleased after having gotten to experience it in person with Lake Lewis, regular Tuesday guest on the morning warm-up, 7 to 8 a.m., VTR and Sports app, and your, well, at least Lake's auntie, Donna Hopkins, as well?
Yeah, I think the NFL did a great job with the event. I think it's public news now that the Commanders will have another international game next year. Don't know where, but the NFL did a phenomenal job at just the Miami Dolphins were the home team. So they had a lot of Miami fan rallies, but for the Commanders fans that came out, there was quite a bit for them to do as well. They did not get left out of the fun festivities. And so kudos to the NFL and all that they're doing to just, spread the NFL across the world, quite frankly. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the Commanders end up on the schedule next year for an international game.
Yes, indeed. It is so interesting to see now how the Commanders have been viewed in that perception. One way to increase that, of course, is to win football games. That has eluded them this year. Jaden Daniels, slated to return to practice, but status still doubtful. Is this merely Washington realizing that with that loss in Miami, it further distances their opportunity to make the playoffs, and therefore, while they'd like to get Daniels more reps, slow playing it for his health is still the necessary move?
Oh, absolutely. They have to do what's best for the player first. Everybody would want Jaden to play, right? I think it's a Sunday night game unless they decide to flex it back. But if he's not there yet, I think that's just the reality. He's not there yet. And, this is the third injury he's had this season. He's dealt with a knee injury, a hamstring, now the dislocated left elbow. So it's honestly just better to be safe than sorry. And with, the season kind of in flux or just kind of, not yet down the tubes, but not promising either. It's just really, truly better to be safe than sorry for the long run.
Yes, indeed it is for Washington in that stance. Now for the Washington Commanders themselves, what realistic changes do you anticipate seeing from the Commanders now that they are out of their bye week, and does it produce any results?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we did see in the Miami Dolphins and in the team's loss to the Miami Dolphins is overall effort. They continue to lose folks to injuries, but on the defense perspective, you saw a different effort there with Dan Quinn calling the plays, and I think just the team's receptiveness to him overall. I also, let's not forget, they did make a change at kicker, so we'll see what Jake Moody does, right? Because we all know, and just watching the games, the Commanders games as well as across the league, kickers do matter. So we'll see what he does, and let's just see what, they're starting to get players back. So they announced today that Noah Brown is within his 21-day window. Coach Quinn sounded today like he was a bit excited about Terry McLaurin being back at practice as well. Will Harris is within his 21-day window, as well as Drake Jackson. So it sounds like he's excited to be getting players back. Despite the record, he feels good that guys are able to come back.
We will see what that means for the Commanders and hear it later this coming weekend, Sunday night to be specific. Candy, thank you for your time in the Fast Lane. We always love catching up with you. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and especially enjoy the fact that you don't have to be working a game that day.
Absolutely. You all as well. And thank you so much for having me. I'll be talking to you guys again soon.
Seawald, Madam President of Bowie TV Sports, to wrap up part one of Covering the Commonwealth. When we return, part two with David Cunningham of TechSideline.com. Women's basketball loses. Virginia Tech football loses on the field, but not everywhere else. That when we return.
It's the final countdown to savings during the Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Holiday savings have started, and this is your last chance to save. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Stop the search. Head to the Motor Mile for over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, and a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you choices more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company. We make it easy to buy with in-house financing. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. 11 new car brands, over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. Our biggest sale of the year is here. The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. But hurry, this sale ends when the new year begins.
Going once, going twice, gone. This is the last year you can have Terrell E. Mosley install a new qualifying heat pump and get a $2,000 federal tax credit. If your current system is over 10 years old, you should seriously consider updating your system and take advantage of this tax credit. Not to mention, a new, more energy-efficient system will also save you on your electric bill. Call Terrell E. Mosley. It's a free service for them to come and discuss the options available to you. Don't miss out. Call Terrell E. Mosley or visit them at terrellemosley.com.
It's a Black Friday special for Jefferson Forest Cavaliers football presented by TrostBall.com. After the long bus ride to Winchester to defeat John Hanley, JF makes a shorter trip to GW Danville with a region championship on the line. Your Central VA flooring kickoff show starts at 6:30 on the Virginia's Talk Station app, 100.9 FM Lynchburg, 95.5 FM Bedford, and Open Virginia Talk Radio Network on your smart speaker. JF Football is also presented by Apple Auto Glass, Clyde Smith Plumbing, Impact Church, Magic City Chrysler Dodge, Jeep Ram Bedford, and the Concrete Wizard.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real technology so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us. Build with experience. Build with quality. Build with right choice.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Well, we're not going to go the conventional way in part 2 of covering the Commonwealth.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the Virginia Tech Hokies.
David Cunningham, TechSideline.com, with us here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and Fast Lane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and however you listen to podcasts. Lady Hokies dropped their first road game at James Madison yesterday by 9. Starting to feel a level of concern for Megan Duffy's team, or just an early season reality, David?
Yeah, great to be with you, Ed. A little bit of concern. I think there were some concerning aspects of the game. I don't know that the game as a whole was a concern because there were some positive things. The Hokies came back from an 11-point deficit to lead. That's impressive. But how they got in that hole in the first place, and then how it kind of slipped away, and also how the game unfolded in certain spots, a little bit concerning maybe. The biggest thing, I think, Ed, is the Hokies were out-rebounded by 20. And while that number, yes, is big, I think the biggest part was the Hokies were they gave up 21 second chance points on the glass and only had 3 themselves. This didn't shoot the ball very well either, and this is a team that hasn't really shot it well through the first 5 games or 6 games. So they head down to the U.S. Virgin Islands, Ed, with 2 opportunities for some really big kind of confidence boosts, resume boosts, sure, but in terms of confidence, I mean, just shooting the ball well, seeing it go through the net, they have not done that so far this season, and they're going to play some quality teams down there. I think they have an opportunity to turn it around, but they're going to have to be physical, and they're going to have to rebound the basketball well, something they have not necessarily done so far this year.
Meanwhile, speaking of concerns with David Cunningham of TechSideline.com, men's basketball, things were humming along great. Overtime win against Providence. St. Joseph's dominated them a couple of weeks ago. And then in the last week in change, Charlotte, not too comfortable, and Bryant eventually pulling away in that one, but never getting overly comfortable in that one either. Is this just Virginia Tech feeling out their lineups as we saw Christian Gerdak play a big role against Bryant, or, again, more deeper concerns?
No, I'm not as worried about the men, Ed. I think they're in a pretty good situation. I mean, they've played well, and they've already shown that they can beat a pretty good Providence team. Now, they'll be tested on Wednesday against Colorado State. That's a really good offensive team, not as good defensively. If they win that game, they're likely going to play a really good St. Mary's squad, and they could potentially play a team like Vanderbilt later in the tournament. So there are opportunities for quality wins down in the Bahamas for them this week. I'm less concerned about them. I think they've shown some promise. They've shown some highs, but it's early in the season. You're figuring some stuff out. You're having situations where, I don't know, you're down a starting 5 and your backup center gets ejected on 2 flagrant fouls. Like, that's just something kind of fluky that you don't see all the time. And to Christian Gerdak's credit, as you mentioned, he stepped up as a true freshman and played very well. But I think the Hokies, they played all right. I think stylistically, they have struggled a little bit in terms of a slower pace against teams like Charlotte, who want to play very methodically. I'm curious to see when they play a team like Colorado State, who isn't as good defensively and is still willing to play a little bit up-tempo, how things shake out. But I've been impressed, Ed, for the most part, with the way Tech has rebounded the basketball. I think they continue to do that well, and turning the ball over. They have limited those. They have been one of the best in the country so far this year, which is, as you know very well, the complete opposite of last year's team. They are taking care of the ball so well. It's been very impressive, and that's a big difference from last year's team that gave the ball away all the time. When you do that, when you take care of the ball, play good defense, and rebound, you're going to win games. It's kind of just a matter then of if your shots fall or not.
The real D. Cunna, Twitter, Instagram, TechSideline.com. how you keep up with David Cunningham. We're at Fastlane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and however you listen to podcasts. Virginia Tech loses to Miami 34-17 in a game where never really felt like they could keep up with Miami, even though they kept it close. What did we learn about that game that could translate into what James Franklin is going to do, other than more confirmation that the majority of the roster probably needs to be revamped?
Well, I'll tell you about one or two pieces that don't need to be revamped. Look at the running back room, Ed. I mean, if you're James Franklin, you come in here and go, man, we got some good running backs in store. And it sounds like the Hokies have a chance to potentially get another pretty big time recruit in the boat as far as a running back goes over the next couple of weeks. He was visiting over the weekend, but I mean, Jeffrey Overton, he raced away for a 38-yard touchdown, and that's the first time we've really seen him break away. But he's only played in 3 games, and he's had quite the impact. He averaged 9.9 yards per carry against a Miami defense that had not allowed more than 161 yards this year. The Hokies rushed for 195, I think. At the same time, Marcellus Hawkins averaged 9 yards per carry. Virginia Tech has really good running backs, and I think that's a credit to Elijah Brooks, the running backs coach, who I kind of expect to be retained by James Franklin, especially considering he is a former DeMatha head coach, has great recruiting ties, and is a great recruiter. But I look at that running back room and go, they've got some dudes. They can do something with the running backs from here on out, going into next season, where they've got a running back room of Hawkins and Jeffrey Overton coming off of a full offseason after coming off of last year's injury. I think that is a group I look at and go, they've got some promise there. I think you mentioned it. A lot of the other positions, it's like, they've probably got to revamp a lot of this. But I look at the running back room and go, you need to keep all those guys in the fold. They need to be like, you better give them as much NIL as they want, because those are some dudes that can go make plays for you next year.
So you mentioned that for Virginia Tech and potential additions to that. How big was this recruiting weekend for Virginia Tech in terms of players on campus and the likelihood they get a number of them to commit to James Franklin?
I think a lot. I think it was really, really big. I think you can't understate it. He is a great recruiter, James Franklin. That is what he does. He is a salesman. And I think you will see it with some players that are currently committed to Penn State and others that are visiting. I think you will see it over the next week and a half until signing day next Wednesday. You will see it all play out. My guess, Ed, is the 10, 15 maybe kids, or probably 8 to 10 at least to start, of guys that will either flip or just commit to Virginia Tech after coming into town this weekend. And it wasn't just 2026 kids. There were a lot of 2027, 2028 recruits in town too. I think this is a great opportunity, despite the result, great opportunity for James Franklin to kind of get a head start of the next 2 recruiting classes, but also kind of nail down some of these guys that are kind of on the fence right now. There are some Penn State guys who don't know who their next coach is going to be. Well, there's a guy who's built some great relationships with them throughout this process already, James Franklin. And he got to come out and to the crowd, gave him a standing ovation, and great opportunity to pitch the program. And this is a leg up, I think, for the Hokies heading into signing day. I expect 5, 10, 15 maybe commitments potentially, to add to this class. They've got 8 guys right now. It's probably going to be 6 or 7. I expect one guy to maybe go somewhere else, but I think the Hokies are in pretty good shape, and you'll start to see it kind of take shape over this next week.
Meanwhile, the transfer portal as well for Virginia Tech. What percentage of the roster would you say next year will be transfer portal players if you had to give your rough TechSideline.com beat reporter not Chris Coleman, David Cunningham expertise?
That's a really good question, Ed. I feel like I would probably say around like 40%, and that might be lowballing it. You think about it's 120 players on the roster, about that, somewhere between 100 and 120. My guess is you're going to get about 30 or 40 kids in from the transfer portal. I think that's just the way it's going to go, because you have to go through and revamp a lot of rooms, reconstruct the offensive line room. You got to get more defensive backs in there, because that area has just been really, really tough for the Hokies with all these injuries. Linebacker. I look up front and I think the Hokies are okay on the defensive line, but at the same time, a lot of those guys graduate. I think they are going to have a huge task on their hands. But the biggest thing, Ed, is you can get some of these really highly talented guys from the high school ranks and then add portal guys to it where you don't necessarily have to go after portal guys who all these portal guys who you've never made contact with before, right? That's kind of the way it might play out. The Hokies have a lot of these high school connections, a lot of relationships with high school players and recruits, right? Use those to your advantage. Get as many guys in the boat as you can over the next week and a half before signing day, and then you get to go to work on the rest of your roster, figuring out who needs to stay, who needs to go, who you're gonna retain, where you're gonna put your NIL money towards. And then, man, I expect once that January window opens, Ed, they're going to hit the portal hard, and I would expect them to bring in 30 to 40 kids. You look at this past season, Hokies brought in about 30, 35. So you're talking about a new coach, fresh car smell, everybody's happy around the program. I expect a huge influx of talent. But the biggest thing is I'm interested to hear who James Franklin thinks they need to keep, because I think there is some talent on this roster, but you've really got to sift around and find it. I don't think that it's all necessarily clear cut.
No, it's not, but the insight is clear cut, and the place to get it for great insight is also clear cut. David Cunningham, TextSideline.com, with us in the Fast Lane. David, thank you for your time. We're grateful for it, and we say this with true hearts. Happy Thanksgiving from our family at the Fast Lane and the Virginia Talk Radio Network to you and yours.
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys too, Ed, and I'll talk to you next week.
David Cunningham of TextSideline.com. That's how we wrap up today here in the Fast Lane. If you missed anything, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, however you listen to podcasts, Ty Tracy 90 as well to connect with us. We're back tomorrow, 5 to 6 p.m. Last show of a short week on the VTRN Sports app. Now getting you set momentarily for Monday Night Football. Thanks for listening to the Fast Lane on VTRN Sports 93.3.